and we're gonna look into those interesting things because I like interesting things. People like interesting things. Can't go wrong with interesting things. I might need to refresh my page. We got which ones are connected? Error. That's not good. We got an error from our other chat stream. Let's try it again. That's not good. Settings, appearance. I know. Let's go to... Might need to reconnect. Oh, no, there it goes. It's free and open source. The only issue is it's Chinese. Well, that's the problem, right? Chinese, Russian. There's always a problem if it's a nation-state actor type of tool, right? We have initiatives at my workplace to not have ties to any software or programs or what have you that originate from China, Russia. It's open source, so it's not Chinese. I think. Well, I think the overarching idea is that it's backed by China. Hey, Mel. Sorry, there was a little technical difficulties there. The chat was not loading. WebDev, sup, bro? I want to take this opportunity to thank you for doing these cert ranking vids. It cleared my mind a lot. Glad to hear that. That's what I make them for, to clear people's minds. The confusion that is the certificate market. There's just too many certs. Open source means the code is publicly available, not it's Chinese or not. Yeah, indeed. Indeed. I wanted to read through here because somebody at work, right, one of the companies that we provide service to, they asked, hey, what's your thoughts on DeepSeek? And we're like, probably shouldn't be using it. At least for some time. Let it run its course a little bit. And we got some other videos that I want to look at. I was interested in looking at as far as the apparently no one wants to work. I didn't know that. I woke up, I went to work, I worked a little bit, started scrolling, and apparently nobody wants to work these days. So let's see what's that about. I don't know what that could possibly be about. And maybe there's a reason. I'm curious about the reason. But first, DeepSeek. My theory is that China exploited OpenAI, stole their proprietary data, and iterated on it. That's a fair theory. That's a rabbit hole we can go into. Let him marinate, bro. You never know. Yeah. How likely is it to land a job in tech with AI developing at the rate it's going? AI developing is not an impact to any of our jobs, people. No, we're not getting our jobs taken away. The jobs are getting more complicated. Just hook you up to the Matrix. Well, burn through reality. That might be a reality soon. You just got to get the Neuralink or all the other companies that are coming out with their version of the Neuralink. And soon you too can be a part of the Matrix. And you can battle with AI. Wouldn't that be fun? I want to work. Give me a job. Oh, we just got to keep trying, Magic. So I wanted to read through this article because I haven't done a whole lot of research. And kind of for anybody else who's... I'm sure some of you have heard about it, but some of you have been lazy and don't want to read. So I will read it for you and we can discuss. AI is much better than actually working. Using AI is much better than actually working. Yeah, it can be. Using AI and an AI not working, and then you have to troubleshoot AI, is not fun. So I'll say that right now. Cunning Chinese. Can't wait for AI to make up my McDonald's order for me. Well, you don't need AI to make up your McDonald's order. If you go there often enough and you get an account, that's all you need. It's going to remember what you ordered last. You don't need AI for that. Like, hey, last time you got 7 McChickens and a sweet tea. Do you want that again? And you hit yes. You grab your McChickens and you go eat in your car like a sane person would. Hey, Rob. What's up? You have lower back pain? Not yet. I'm not sure how to pronounce that name. I have lower back pain from the doing certain exercises at the gym, but otherwise, no. Usually not. Random Gaming in Full HD. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate that. Do you think non-coders can use AI to write apps? Yes. At least you can use it to build a basic app. You're going to have to do a lot of troubleshooting, though. You can't just have AI do it for you. You can ask how to write certain functions within it, and you can use it as a tool, but you're not going to be able to do a full-fledged app with no coding knowledge whatsoever. But that would be a good project for you to do. It's a good venture if you want to go down that route and build yourself an app. And they make app writing really easy. You don't need to be a coding savant to be able to write up an app. Just look up some guides. Like, I don't have the guides ready, but AI is notoriously wrong about things. You want that in your airplanes and cars? No, probably not airplanes and cars, but there's a few cases where we can use it and streamline things. I have an internship but no full-time position. Have called me back. Internship's a start. Lizard. Yo. How are you? Possible jailbreak for DeepSeek. Maybe Plinius. That felt personal. Needed to delete my Grubhub history. Hey, Jonice Gaming. I use Gemini for more or less data manager in Python. Yeah. It's just use it. Use it. Use DeepSeek. All right. So, by the way, if none of you know what the heck we're talking about, it's this right here. DeepSeek. Talk to me, DeepSeek. Are you from China? All right, let's see. Let's see if it knows where it's from. This is DeepSeek version 3, an AI system independently developed by the Chinese company DeepSeek Inc. Aha! Let the record show it identifies itself as Chinese. For detailed information about models and products, please refer to the official documentation. So, in case anybody was wondering, this is open source. However, there you go. Not knowing how to code and using AI won't give you much advantage. You actually need to know some software development for that to be scalable and secure. Well, we're not going for scalable or secure web dev. I think he just wants to build it out so it works. A very basic app you could build without having some major coding knowledge. I could probably build a coding app, and I'm stupid. John Ice Gaming. I'm sorry I mispronounced your name. Mad Hat is DeepSeek censored. Is DeepSeek censored? Is that a question magic? It probably is. I don't know. Is it being censored when I say it? Just randomly has bleeps. All right, so it's a Chinese-made artificial AI model shot at the top of the Apple Store's downloads recently. It has AI. AI at times make a computer seem like a person. This is a BBC article, so it's not going to get too technical. Machine using technology to learn solve problems. Create falsehoods, offer repeat biases, continue to train data. Yeah, exactly. We all know how AI works. You've seen my AI video with tutorial on how AI works. Fundamentally, we're good. Millions of people use tools such as ChatGPT. This bad boy right here. Nice. Millions of people. We know that. What is DeepSeek? AI-powered chatbot. It's just the new ChatGPT. I want to look at the charts after this because the charts are staggering. It also talks about in a video a little bit further down what exactly the impact is there because I had no real idea what the repercussions of this was. What were you saying that what this is actually from China? Yeah, it is from China. Is there free Chinese maternity? Why are people freaking out so much over this AI, over ChatGPT causing NVIDIA to drop so much stock? Hey, look at this. It's the end of times for NVIDIA. You bring up stock. Check this out. Yeah, don't pay attention to it going back up. That's not... No, we're focused on this. We're locking in on this. All the news, we're going to just say this is what's happening and it's what's going to continue to happen. But real quick, this is only a 1-minute video. Maybe this will give you give me a highlight, give you all a highlight too of what exactly this is. Real quick. What is it?
What is DeepSeek? So, DeepSeek, a Chinese AI company that's come up with a large language model, if you like. It's the sort of thing that we see from ChatGPT. It's caused a huge fuss over the weekend because it stormed to the top of Apple's free app downloads in the App Store charts, unseating ChatGPT. It's made the markets get a little bit jittery, which I'm sure you'll talk to us about. And the reason it's made the markets get a bit jittery is supposedly it's cost a really small amount of money in comparison to other AI models to train.
Here's
and
the
to
problem.
Develop. It's apparently cost $6 million
Dirt cheap
to develop. Now, to give you some sort of sense around what that means, some of OpenAI's models have apparently cost in excess of $100 million to develop. So this has resulted in the value of quite a few tech companies taking quite a big hit on the markets today because there's thinking perhaps that we're in a bit of an AI bubble, that these companies are overvalued, that the investment that we're seeing in them isn't really, it's not representative of the value that we're going to see back from them in the short term.
There you go. People are starting to rethink the value of NVIDIA and all these other tech places that are backing AI. NVIDIA, if you don't already know what NVIDIA is, they're mostly known for their graphics cards. Right? I got a NVIDIA. I'm a NVIDIA Andy. I got a 4070 Ti. We don't really need to know who's behind this to be afraid of DeepSeek. First released LLM the following year, right? So how are companies like NVIDIA hit? DeepSeek achievements undercut the belief that bigger budgets and top-tier chips are the only way of advancing AI, a prospect which has created uncertainty about the future of high-performance chips. Whoops. NVIDIA was impacted. I was reading that with the music very loud. Basically, they didn't use high-end chips, right? They've proven that cutting-edge AI models can be developed with limited computing resources. That's why they're all taking a hit. That's why NVIDIA took a real big dump right here. It's just, but fear not, it is but a blip. All right. It's all doom and gloom if you just zoom into stuff, but it's going back up. What was the stock that went down and it shot back up? I don't remember which one that was. I can't remember it. Maybe it was crypto. I'm out of the stocks and crypto scene. But in contrast, OpenAI valued at $150 billion. A screen over its ability to maintain dominant edge, right? So this is raising concerns and questions over the overvaluated companies industry, being that technically the Nasdaq to fall more than 3% broad sell. NVIDIA appears to have been in the worst plunge, 17%. Everybody's focusing on that. Let's turn it up. It's loud. It's not loud enough. Facebook 2 to 3 years ago, yeah, everything fluctuates, right? That's just the name of the game when it comes to the stock market. This is going to happen. This is not surprising. No doom and gloom. China is celebrating DeepSeek's impact. DeepSeek's rise is a huge boost for the Chinese government, which has been seeking to build tech independent of the West. That's pretty much it. But the technical side of things, right? The performance. The reason that this is as impactful as it is not just the fact that, oh, China has an LLM now. No, it has significant, It's an outlier. That's why this is such a big deal. That's why everybody's talking about it. This is the training cost, spectrum of costs, right? Have been rising throughout the industry, been going up, but the price for DeepSeek version 3, precursor to R1, significantly lower. Look at it, all the way down there. This is year released, obviously. Look how expensive GPT-4 was. GPT-4, 40 million. So, there you go. Def overvalued? Yeah, I mean, it's just a perception, right? You can convince people that invest your money. We need it. And, yeah, they'll take it. Invest it into it. It won't necessarily mean that the performance is any better. If, case in point, right? How many of you don't like NVIDIA and choose the other processing power? Was it Radeon? Radeon versus NVIDIA. Who is the graphics card champion? Like, this is another example of I'm not going to go too far into the weeds about graphics cards, but performance-wise, right? AMD versus NVIDIA is similar. NVIDIA's overpriced. You're paying for the brand almost, pretty much. I wants to know if you were barefoot. Why Delta? Yes, I am barefoot, actually. I like being able to breathe. What gives me faster route to 75k? Networking, IT, or SOC? Cheesy Beast. Faster route, about the same. Whether or not you'll get a job in either, that's a different question. It might be faster to get a job in networking and IT right now because that's a broader spectrum of available jobs. I think AI advancements are coming a lot quicker than most think. Well, that's the thing, Pirate Legend. We don't know. Who's to say how quick it's going to be? You can't, you can project it all you want, but it's like stocks at that point. You're just making an educated guess, and it could be 5-10 years, it could be 1 year. We don't know what's cooking behind the scenes because we're not a part of it. Talking about easier to get in what? Sorry, didn't hear. Oh, easier to get into networking and IT positions. Bro, it hit 1,000. Silver Fox. I bought when it was 105 2 years ago. Made a killing. Talking about their stocks. What hit 1,000? Mad at coin win? Yeah. That would be interesting if I had a crypto coin. I'm not getting into that. Nope. Can't make me. I'm not going into crypto again. Not unless I have money to throw away. But back to this chart real quick. The performance of DeepSeek, right? Look at that. Coding, quantitative reasoning and knowledge, all the metrics here. It's on par, right? It's better at coding, apparently. But the big thing is that it's comparable with the lower budget. That's why everybody's freaking out. So in case you're wondering, there you go. Look at that. Also, this. Despite being larger than other AI models, DeepSeek's R1 uses only a fraction of its parameters in each interaction. So I'm guessing this means it's more efficient. Relies on a mixture of experts. But yeah, there's that. There's not any more concerns about that. I think we can lay that to rest. It's just another AI model backed by China. That cheaper DeepSeek could have been shadow bankrolled by other sources. We don't truly know. I guess we don't. SOC level 3 with 75k wants 5-year experience. Well, that's just one SOC. Trailhouse. You're going to get an entire just wide spectrum of positions labeled SOC level 3, level 2, level 1. They're all going to pay different amounts. That is the pain of applying to jobs, is dealing with the wide array of job titles not matching to the same exact salary entry rate. So just apply to everything. A SOC level 3 at a bigger company is probably going to pay 150K. Computer file. Let's see. See if I can find that. Three hours ago. Do I want to watch this? I guess. I guess we can lay it to rest with this. All right, let's see.
Another piece of AI is announced.
That's
but,
right.
Why is this one so important?
We don't tend to do that many videos for the release of a new AI model just because there are a lot of them and lots of them are not that interesting, right? But in the last few days, a model called DeepSeek has come out and a new model called DeepSeek R1 that are very interesting, right? And I think actually are really threatening the kind of monopoly that certain companies have on this system. And so let's talk about why that is and why we should be really excited.
I'm not excited.
Perhaps we should just step away for a minute and just for those people that have kind of not been paying attention, maybe this is the first time you've ever watched a video with me in it. What is a large language model? A large language model is a very, very big transformer-based neural network that does next word prediction. And so
no, there's a lot of jargon there. So how do we get through some of that jargon?
All right, yeah, okay. So a neural network is...
Might I interrupt for just a brief moment? 5 years to reach 70K just seems you don't need 5 years to reach 70K, cheesy beast. You do not. 1 to 2 years if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and you have a decent background to get to 70K. Just my 2 cents. Get excited about AI again constantly. It's every week I get over it and then something comes out and I'm like, oh, AI.
The sort of a standard for machine learning. Things like convolutional neural networks are very, very popular in the image-based. Computer vision, AI for video, these kind of things. And transformers, since about 2017, have become a really big thing in generative AI.
But what we didn't know really was how far you can push them or how good they can get.
And so you could kind of, I suppose, split generative AI in two. You've got diffusion models, which do image generation, and you've got transformers that do text generation. And it's worth remembering that all modern AI of this kind is text generation, rather than kind of going off and, coming up with some fundamental concepts of your own and coming back. And so basically the way that you normally train these models is you get a huge, huge model that is too big for most of us to train. You get hundreds of thousands of GPUs possibly.
So these are the graphics cards.
The graphics cards that train the model, and then you just batch through all of the text on the internet, learning how to predict the next word over and over again until you get so good at it that you can start regurgitating facts. You can even start solving logic problems or mathematical problems and things like this, right? But what's happened is...
You can start a YouTube channel, call it Mad Hat, I don't know, whatever you want.
Over the last few years, since ChatGPT was announced in what was it, 2022? I mean, it's not even been that long. There's been this kind of arms race among all the tech companies of who can build the biggest model, who can build the most performant model. And generally speaking, their approach to doing this is to make them bigger, to make the data sets bigger, to make the models bigger, to make them more clever, and train them until you get that better performance. We've spoken about this in previous videos on how much you can keep doing that, but that's kind of not what we're talking about today. The idea is basically, has always been that if you have 100,000 graphics cards, if you have billions of dollars to spend, you're going to be at an advantage because you have that power that you can train the largest models. Now, some companies like OpenAI keep their models behind the scenes and they expose them through an API or a web interface or something like this, and they very rarely give them away to anyone apart from perhaps close partners. They also very rarely tell you exactly how they've trained the model, what the data set was, what the actual model parameters are.
And DeepSeek is DeepSeek is open source. This is where he's probably going with this.
And how big it is and things like this. On the other hand, a company like Meta, so you'll know Meta from Facebook, have a much more open AI policy where they basically release their models, and those models are called Llama, and they are very good, and they are released for free, and you can all use them, and I've used them. But regardless of whether you release the models, they're out of reach of most people. I can run these models, I can refine them, I can't train them from scratch. I don't have that kind of resource. I don't have enough money to pay the electricity bill for the server farm. In most areas of science, you might read a paper and you might go, that's good, but I think I can change this thing and make it slightly better. And then you release a paper that makes it slightly better and someone else does. And
Yeah, that's what everybody thinks, right? Everybody's got that, oh, I could do that mentality. That the competing company over there, maybe if it's a company, or maybe it's just a group of kids, right? Really, really smart kids. And I say kids, I'm just thinking like 20-year-olds right now because I'm old. And yeah, they want to take this open source language model and make it better because everybody thinks they can make it better until they try doing it. And it turns out it's harder than it looked.
Someone else does, and everyone just gets slightly better at doing this thing. That doesn't necessarily happen so much in these big AI models because ultimately there's only a few people that can do it. Yeah. And so this kind of openness, I personally think, I'm an academic, so I would think this, right? But personally, I think openness is a good thing. Now, what's happened in the last few days is, well, and also just before the end of the last year, is that a small company in China has released a model called DeepSeek, right? And there are a couple of flavors of this model, and we can talk about them, but they've kind of changed the game a little bit, right? Because what they've basically shown is that you can train with more limited hardware, still expensive, but much more limited, and you can train particularly the most recent variant of models much more efficiently in terms of the amount of data you need to collect, which has been a huge pain for everyone. So perhaps we'll break down a little bit about some of the things that the model does that other models don't do and why this is going to be quite a big deal. Let's talk about V3 first. So V3 is their kind of flagship model that you can think of as a little bit like ChatGPT, right? It's basically another large transformer. It's trained on lots and lots of text. It has a conversation. I've spoken to it, you know, as much as one can speak to a chatbot, and it answers perfectly reasonable questions, and it acts in much the same way you would expect. Right? And you can actually use it online now. V3 offers lots and lots of different performance benefits over previous models, which make it much, much cheaper to train. The company that trained it are claiming that they trained this model, which is similar in terms of performance to Llama, to ChatGPT, for $5 million of hardware and electricity. Right? To give you an idea, one of the largest models might be upwards of 100 million, possibly towards $1 billion. Right? And you've also got to consider the fact that you may not hit the right model the first time. You might have multiple variants you're training, right? The amount of money and electricity being used to train these models is absolutely enormous. There's a reason that Microsoft are exploring restarting up a nuclear power plant. So
I can think, I'm imagining, right, if I'm understanding this correctly, it's a money pit. It's a sink. You're throwing money at these language models until you get something that works. So you're just throwing away money, billions of dollars, until it starts doing what it's supposed to be doing. That's why we saw in the previous chart, what was it, 5 billion? What was that? Is this one? What was that? 5? No, that's million. Billions over time, I imagine. 40 million. Yeah, I think over time, it ends up to 1 billion. That might be where GPT-4 is at.
So it does this in lots of different ways, but I wanted to kind of talk about a couple of ways that I think are quite interesting. So one of them is called mixture of experts, which is mixture of
about getting
experts.
Us to Mars.
One of
the
things that big models have tried to do is everything, right? So the idea is you have one chatbot to rule them all. And the idea is that if you ask it a maths problem or you ask it a language problem or you ask it a definition of something in physics, it will be able to answer those questions. And I think, you know, we've observed that is often the case, but not always the case, right? And the better you get at some tasks, maybe you get slightly worse at other tasks.
So it's like a jack of all trades.
Yeah, master of none kind of situation. But there is another downside to this, which is that it's very, very expensive to do this, right? If you have a model with, let's say, 400 or 500 billion parameters, you have to store that in memory somewhere. And when you run through it, that all gets activated and you have to work out your mathematics throughout that whole model to get to the prediction.
So there's the training session, which takes a lot of energy anyway.
Yeah.
And then also...
So the parameters are, again, there's a chart for that. Here you go. Smaller parameters. This is what this was referring to. I think parameters used during interaction, total parameters. That's a lot of parameters. Jesus. Wow. That's nuts compared to the other AI models.
Also,
Inference is what we call it, yeah, when you actually talk to the thing. And you've got to think that you're going through this network a lot of times because it probably only produces 1 or 2 tokens at a time. And so it's not very efficient. Lots of AI models for classification of things will just go like that and they'll tell you what the answer is. This tells you what the next word is, and then it goes back and tells you what the next word is. And it's hugely expensive to do this. Once it's been trained and maybe cost you $100 million because it's a giant model, it then is difficult to use because you have to have this on huge data centers so that enough people can talk to it at once, and it's very, very expensive even to ask it simple questions.
So that's the thing that has been the case.
That's the previous one, yeah. What Mixture of Experts does is it's trying to have different bits of a network focused on different tasks. But let's imagine you have a prompt here that comes in and you have a giant network that finally gives you your answer over here, right? And this has, let's say, 670 billion parameters in it. The problem is you don't know exactly which bit is solving which problem, right? It might be a little bit over here and a little bit over here, and actually the rest of it's kind of not useful in solving this particular question because it's got other stuff that it's doing. So maybe you ask it a very specific maths question. What Mixture of Experts will do is have trained a specific part of this network, a much smaller part, to solve that problem for you. And so you basically have the early stages will route the question to different parts of the network and then only activate a small part of it, let's say 30 billion.
Does anyone get the vibe that I'm getting when you're looking at this? This is just a massive brain. We're developing AI models that are just going to turn into a supercomputer brain, and it's going to be able to answer whatever because it has these neurons. Let's call them neurons. And they're going to fire off when you ask them questions, and they're going to be able to access that like memory, and we'll see where that goes from there.
So maybe you ask, will activate, and then that will produce your answer. You can develop systems using agents like this where you have one that's trained to do this and one that's trained to do this, and you just ask the right one, right? Suppose I want to train a network to write my emails for me. Maybe it's very good at that, and then I train a different network to solve a different problem, and I just ask the right one as opposed to hoping that one model can do it. Okay. So that's much more efficient because you can distribute these different bits across a data center. Some of them can lie dormant when they're not being activated. It's much cheaper to do this. And so that's one of the reasons I think why DeepSeek's pricing is already coming in very, very low compared to the pricing of some of the other companies. Another thing that is being shown to work really well is, so you could have this giant model and you could only activate certain parts of it. That still requires quite a lot of infrastructure. But what if you had a much smaller model and you used this to teach it what to do, right? And that's another thing that's becoming really, really useful. And people are already taking these giant models and using them to train smaller models. So essentially, this is a process called distillation. And the idea is you take your 670 billion model, you ask it a bunch of questions in a certain field, and you use those answers to train a smaller model to do the exact same thing. And often it will work because actually a lot of the parameters weren't needed or were solving some other task. And so you can distill that problem solving into a small model. So you can get pretty decent performance from an 8 billion model, right, which will run on standard hardware. I can run an 8 billion model on my computer, and you'll get close to the same kind of performance, certainly enough for most use cases.
Just in a restricted field.
In a restricted field, yeah. You wouldn't necessarily get, I mean, you could actually get pretty generally good performance. But yeah, if you have a specific goal in mind, it's very useful for that, right? I should say, actually, they're just porting the general model, so they're not necessarily restricting it to a certain field, but your performance will probably be better if you do. But you know, why use 670 billion parameters and all these GPUs when you can just use 8 billion and run it on your 4090, you know, nice, I'll do that. The other thing they've done is they've made a lot of mathematical savings in terms of the number of mathematical computations you have to do to go forward through a network, right? So we won't spend too much time talking about this. Maybe there's another video where we go into that in a bit more detail. But essentially, if you think that one of these networks might have thousands and thousands of very large matrix multiplications where each of your matrices is 2,000 or 4,000 by 4,000. That is just a huge amount of computation, even for a fast machine. Very expensive to do. But there are ways to make this more efficient. And DeepSeek aren't the only ones that have come up with these ways. There's lots of people researching this. We're starting to see networks that can be trained at a fraction of a cost because internally, their parameters are used more efficiently. So that's V3, right? But that's actually not kind of what people are most excited about. This is really good, and training a network for this amount of money is hugely impressive. But there's a few other things that they've done since then that have also been really quite special. So R1 is the latest model, and R1 performs something called chain of thought. So what is chain of thought? Well, chain of thought is something you might have seen if you've ever spoken to GPT-4o1. Imagine that I ask you to solve a long division problem, right? And I ask you just to save a number to me. Right? That's going to be kind of difficult to do, right? For a big long division. What you would do is you write down the steps on a piece of paper, and then you solve the problem based on those steps.
You work your way through it.
You work your way through it, right? And the observation of chain of thought is the same kind of idea. It's quite difficult to ask a large language model just, what is the solution to this logic problem, or what is the solution to this mathematical derivation, and it just spit an answer out, because that's not trivial to do, right? There's steps that it's trying to skip over. And so what chain of thought does is essentially write down a step-by-step process of solving the problem and slowly solve it, and then write down the answer, right? And then you just kind of hide the chain of thought. You can show it or you can not show it as you see fit. But you tend to get much better at solving problems that require multiple steps. If you want to just, why is the sky?
How many of you thought that that's how the AI models already worked? I thought they already did chain of thought, where answer this question, ChatGPT, and in the background it's like, oh, I got to do this, then this, then this, then this. So we're just referencing an answer. We're not actually getting a step-by-step process. So if you ask it, hey, code this application, like somebody was asking, it's probably just going to pull how to do that from a single source. It won't piece it together. That's what I'm getting out of this. Which this is the fun part. This is why DeepSeek is on the news. It's because of this.
By blue, it will just regurgitate that pretty easily from text it's learned on the internet. But if you're asking like problem-solving skills, it's hard to do in one shot, so you kind of take a little bit of time to just work through it. And this is essentially...
It's kind of like when we were learning math in elementary, middle school, high school, whatever. And they're like, okay, we're going to teach you how to do this really stupid, convoluted way. And then we're just going to be like, okay, but you could also do this very simple one step, just do this, and there's your answer. But then we had to learn the really stupid way first. That's what this chain of thought is. It's doing it the stupid way, but then bigger picture, you got to be able to do that for more complex tasks, not just basic math.
Adding computational costs during inference, but with the benefit that the performance goes up. Right now, whether that cost is worth doing probably depends on the questions you're asking of it, but that's the idea. Now, OpenAI pioneered this chain of thought. But they don't tell you how they do it, right? So because it's all closed. And so it's not OpenAI at all, right, in some sense. So essentially you see a kind of précis summary version of the chain of thought, but it's not their actual internal monologue, which is essentially a trade secret. What R1 is doing is it's doing a chain of thought which is similar to O1, but it's fully public. They've released all the models, they've released all the code. You can talk to it, you can see the entire monologue, and they've also trained it with massively more limited data. So how would you train this if you were OpenAI or a big tech company? Well, what you would do is you would create a data set that says, here's a question, here's the chain of thought you should have been producing for this question, and here's the answer, right? And you have to produce tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of examples of these kind of things.
You're teaching
what sorts of things, like simple maths problems?
Maths problems, right? So the question I often ask, which has been failed by things like ChatGPT before,
weed wacko, but I'm confused about why we need to replace human thought. We're not replacing human thought. We're improving technology to be able to replicate how humans think, to then do all the stupid things that we don't want to have to do, so that way we can advance technology quicker, right? And then eventually it'll get so smart that it can figure stuff out that not even humans can figure out. And at that point, I hope you're off grid, because, oh no, when that happens.
Is suppose you have a stack of 3 boxes, red, blue, and yellow. The red is on the bottom, On top of that is the blue. On top of that is the yellow. You take the blue one out and put it on the top, right? And then you add a fourth green box onto the top. Can you describe that stack of boxes? Right? And the answer is, can you say it again? Because I need to write that down, right? That's the answer. Now, I've asked ChatGPT this, and it often would fail at it until we got to the new reasoning models, the new chain of thought models, which start to perform a lot better on this kind of task. And we can actually see that happening here on DeepSeek R1. So if we look at the text, it's actually started discussing with itself about how to solve the problem. It comes up with some steps, it goes through, and it finally just produces the correct answer at the bottom. So you don't have to use the chain of thought to look at if you don't want to. From a research point of view, it's quite interesting, and the fact that it's open is really positive. But actually, this is a problem that would have been hard for this model to solve if it didn't have that chain of thought, because it would have just had to basically look at the colors and move them into the output, and that would have been very, very hard. So this chain of thought is what makes problems like this a bit more possible. To actually train it to solve that problem, what you would do is you'd give it a bunch of box stacking problems, a bunch of derivations, and a bunch of solutions and step-by-step examples, and then the answers at the bottom. And over time, it would learn to reproduce that performance. What R1 is doing is turning it on its head a bit and training only using the answers, which is hugely easier because you need much less data. You don't need to have crafted clever internal monologues. The internal monologue comes out of the training process, which is super cool. So the way it works is you give it a question, and then you reward it. So reinforcement learning is this idea where it doesn't directly observe
That's a good robot.
the actual
Good
correct
job.
answer. It gets a reward or it doesn't get a reward based on whether it was right or not, right? So maybe you want to train a robot to walk along. You don't say move your left leg this way. What you do is reward it for getting a bit further, and over time it might learn to walk along. Right? And so they've done this. What they've done is they've given it a load of maths problems and a load of maths answers, but they don't give it the answer. They just tell it whether it was right and whether it was wrong. And also they give it a small reward for having written some kind of internal monologue of the correct format. And over time, as it trains, the monologue gets better and better. And in the end, it has a chat with itself and then solves the problem. The really nice thing about it is that
What?
it's just much easier for someone like me to train a model like this, right? Because there are lots of data sets with questions in and answers. There are very many fewer data sets with really nice step-by-step instructions on how to solve the problem, because I don't know how to solve the problems either, by the way. And so, it makes this, and they've released it all open source. So it makes it much, much easier to do. So, 2 weeks ago, OpenAI was maybe one of the only companies.
Right. What he's saying reward, and then it rewards it, and then it rewards it. Why is he saying reward? Is that just saying you were right? What's the purpose of the reward? I wish you would explain that a little bit. Why does it need the reward? Just say it was right or wrong and then move on in the learning process. What?
That could do something like this, a handful of others, and suddenly now you can kind of do it at home. You will need, to train one of these models from scratch, you may need lots and lots of graphics cards, but massively limited numbers compared to what we had before. So big organizations, let's say the size of this university, could quite comfortably do this now, as opposed to it being totally out of reach, which is a bit of a game changer. And it's worth noting, I'm skipping over some of the cool stuff that they do. There's lots of stuff in this paper, and we can link it in the description. And there's loads of other ways that they train it in. They do a multi-stage training process, not just reinforcement learning, to make it work a little bit better and make it appear more aesthetically pleasing. But in principle, the idea is what they've done is they've released a very performant model and told us exactly how they did it, right? Which is very unusual for these kind of models. And so, in my opinion, a good thing.
This has sent Silicon Valley into a bit of a spin, hasn't it?
Yes. Which, from my point of view, as someone not in Silicon Valley, is quite funny sometimes, right? I think sometimes this is pitched as a bit of an arms race between different countries or different companies. I think it's only an arms race because they make it an arms race, right? The rest of us are just cracking on with our regular research, and that's true of most people. But I think if you have a company where your whole business model is around, you have the best model and no one knows how it works and can copy
You're
you.
not first, you're last.
This really hurts that model, right? Because they've got a good model and everyone knows how it works and can train it themselves, right? That's a huge problem. The other problem is if you have a company like NVIDIA where your stock price is almost entirely based on the fact that these big companies buy hundreds of thousands of incredibly expensive GPUs because that's what's required to get the best performance. and then someone comes along and gets the best performance with essentially consumer hardware, that is also not a good look. Right? Now, it might be that those companies that have loads of GPUs still have an advantage for a while, but it's a leveler, right? Over time, people can do stuff with more limited hardware. And I think that's a great thing because we have access here to dozens of GPUs, and they're decent, right? And they're expensive, but they're not anywhere near in the same league as some of these companies. And so we essentially cannot try those things, right? Because we do other things. Right? But now we can. And I might still not, but I might, and it's an option for me, So I think it's gonna level the playing field a lot, very, very quickly. And I think that once something like this starts, lots of other companies will come up with new models, will come up with new efficiency savings, and it will just that will increase more. We could be seeing the end of kind of closed source AI because it may just not be viable.
Yeah, that's why NVIDIA's 40K Shockwave. What the? Because I don't know if y'all realize how expensive these are. Because you might be just thinking, oh, NVIDIA 4090 or whatever, 5090. Did they come out with the new one already? Let me see. NVIDIA 5000 series 5090. They did. Wow, I'm old, but yeah, this is more what we're talking about here. 40K Shockwave, a GPU for Tech Elite. It's a lot of money. It's not just the little itty bitty computer graphics cards. No, it's massive. These are massively priced NVIDIA GPUs. Billions of dollars. 5090's out. Yeah, that's does it also burn and short circuit and blow up like the 4090? All right. I paused it at the right time. Oh, that's funny.
According to the
I just want to see, as the title, no one wants to work anymore. And DeepSeek is the reason to blame. AI is coming for our jobs. Nobody wants to work. Like, society right now is in shambles with nobody working and AI filling up all the jobs. It's interesting. It is definitely something else. But will it run Doom? Yeah, it might. That you might need that 40K one. OpenAI's Nightmare DeepSeek R1 on a Raspberry Pi. Nah, I think that's enough DeepSeek for one day. So we're gonna see what this person has to say. I don't want to work anymore. Yeah, I don't want to work anymore either. Honestly, I just want to go make bread and live on a farm. But I like computers too much, and I'm constantly just drawn back into it. It's like an addiction. So yeah, whoever wanted to work, seriously, we do it because we must, and we choose hopefully the thing that's the most interesting for us, and hopefully that's computers. If you're watching this right now.
U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, there are 8.1 million jobs available throughout the United States, fueling headlines of a national labor shortage. And yet it takes an average of 6 to 8 months just to land a job, with 62% of Americans now living.
It has never taken me 6 to 8 months to land a job. Let that sink in. I don't know if the numbers are different for y'all, but it has never taken me that long to get a job. It has taken me that long to get a new job, but if I had no job and I applied, I'd just go balls to the wall. It took me about 6 to 8 months to when I was just like casually applying. But when I really went ham and I was like, oh no, I'm sick of this. I'm done. I posted a video about how I was done. It like 1 to 3 months. I was getting interviews, of course. The actual job was about 3 months. So that's not me bragging, but I'm just saying it can happen. I'm not trying to just be doomer vibes. Whoever said they like the new doomer vibe. I don't like doing that, even though my wife says that that's me in a nutshell, is just straight up doomer. No, there's a lot of hope. We just got to find it and cling on to it. How do you eat 6 to 8 months of waiting? See, that's why you need to have This is a joke. Save up, right? You got to save up a little egg just in case you get laid off. But at this point, if we're living paycheck to paycheck like I was back 4 or 5 years ago, I don't know how anybody can save up.
Paycheck to paycheck, raising the question, why does society insist that no one wants to work anymore? While the concept of work has taken many forms throughout history, predominantly centered on seasonal agriculture, it fundamentally changed with the introduction of the Industrial Revolution, where community-driven, task-oriented workdays, largely consisting of only 4 to 6 months out of the year, were now replaced by relentless year-round factory schedules, demanding 12 to 16 hours a day from people of all ages, shifting authority from the family setting into centralized factories that introduced rigid hierarchies, tying productivity to physical presence, and stripping workers of autonomy while forcing them into grueling conditions, ultimately leading workers to organize and create the first national labor union under the slogan, 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest, and 8 hours for what you will, which prompted
Or if you're these days, it's 12 hours for work, 6 hours for getting over your work, 2 hours maybe doing something fun, and then like 6 hours of sleep. It's kind of my schedule.
Work, 8 hours for rest, and 8 hours for what you will, which prompted President Ulysses S. Grant to sign an executive order in 1869, establishing an 8-hour workday for federal employees, laying the initial foundation that would eventually become the modern work week. Meanwhile, conditions in the private sector continued to worsen. By the end of the late 19th century, manufacturing employees worked an average of 100 hours a week, with some industries demanding even more. The dangerous and monotonous nature of factory work left many workers dissatisfied, causing high turnover rates that disrupted production and created significant challenges for employers. It was in this environment that Henry Ford in 1914 addressed an exceptionally high turnover rate of 370% by implementing a strategy of raising wages to $5 per day, more than double the industry standard, while introducing a standardized 40-hour work week, as Ford believed that shorter hours would lead to greater efficiency, as well-rested workers would be more focused and motivated, while higher wages would allow employees to afford the very cars they built.
So basically, pay them more, make them work less, equals more efficient workers that are more willing to work, if I had to summarize that. That's just, it seems like that's just common sense. They're just like, nope, pay them less, make them work more. I don't see how that was ever a recipe for profits and success there.
Fostering loyalty and satisfaction among his workforce. And although many critics mocked Ford, predicting his decision would bankrupt the company, the day after the announcement, 10,000 workers lined up for the chance to work at Ford, willing to overlook the monotony of assembly line tasks for the improved pay and working conditions, stabilizing Ford's workforce and not only introducing the middle class, but setting the stage for FDR's the Fair Labor Standards Act in 1938, which officially established the 40-hour work week in the United States and ensured shorter hours, overtime pay, and minimum wage protections for workers nationwide. While this period unquestionably brought transformative changes that greatly improved working conditions and established critical labor protections, it also introduced deep structural issues that a booming post-war economy managed to obscure. By the late 19th century, as industrialization continued to reshape society, alongside growing resistance from the working class, John D. Rockefeller established the General Education Board to address the increasing demand for a disciplined and compliant workforce to meet the needs of factory production. Rockefeller's efforts focused on creating educational systems designed not to foster individual creativity, but to train workers for industrial environments. His advisor and co-founder of the GEB, Frederick Taylor Gates, expressed this by stating, "We shall not try to make these people or any of their children into philosophers or men of learning or men of science. The task we set before ourselves is very simple as well as a very beautiful one. To train these people as we find them to a perfectly ideal life, just where they are, or by prioritizing productivity to a perfectly
ideal. So he didn't read all that. So we organize the children into a little community and teach them to do it in a perfect way. This seems a little sus to me. We will organize our children into a little community and teach them to do in a perfect way the things their fathers and mothers are doing in an imperfect way. So we're going to teach the kids. This is sounding like child labor to me.
Ideal life, just where they are. Or by prioritizing productivity and obedience over autonomy, these efforts reinforced industrial hierarchies and laid the ideological foundation for a labor market defined by control, delaying the recognition of systemic problems that would inevitably resurface.
How was my working life at Ford? I've never been to hell, but heard a lot about it. It was like working in hell. The harassment, the threats.
I mean, we all have had a job, right, where we're like, this must be what hell feels like. At least that's what we're telling ourselves. It's not that bad, though. We're just, just being doomers. We're just like, my life, it sucks. This job, I have to work in front of a computer and deal with this person on the other line who's an idiot.
The working conditions and the continued watching over you by what they had called at that time starmen.
Where over time, these unresolved issues have become increasingly visible, leaving a labor market constrained by outdated structures and a workforce that feels increasingly disconnected and undervalued, specifically when it comes to the utter disaster that is applying for a job. Unlike previous generations, who predominantly secured jobs by applying in person to help wanted ads, the introduction of technology and global competition has fundamentally reshaped how people find work. Today, 98.8% of Fortune 500 companies rely on application tracking systems, or ATS, to filter and sort resumes through automated criteria before a human ever reviews them, where up to 75% of resumes are rejected automatically, often for minor deviations such as employment gaps, unconventional formatting, or missing keywords, where these inefficiencies are compounded by a complete breakdown of traditional hiring.
I'm still not seeing why, what's the point with the title, no one wants to work. I'm sure he's getting to it, but these are just problems of why it's hard to get a job and why work sucks.
Hiring practices.
Maybe that's why.
Historically, hiring managers worked closely with seasoned recruiters to craft accurate job postings that reflected the true requirements of a role. Today, this process has shifted to HR departments, where 40% of US companies now outsource most, if not all, of their hiring processes to recruitment process outsourcers, or RPOs, who often rely on subcontractors. These subcontractors, in turn, use AI tools to draft job postings and screen candidates, with 40% of companies now using AI for initial interactions and preliminary evaluations, where as a result, job seekers must first pass through the ATS software, then be screened by AI tools, and undergo initial interviews with third-party recruiters who often have very little understanding of the company's needs. If they then advance, they face
oh my God, if I had a nickel for all the calls I've gotten with somebody, a recruiter, who's just like, oh yeah, I'm just checking to see if you got a pulse. You're not a complete weirdo. And it's like, oh, it's just a recruiter. And then you get to talk to them and you have to be upbeat. I'm so excited about this job. Yeah, I'm qualified. And they just have no idea. There's just no technical questions. There's not even like company questions. It's just like, hey, I just want to see if you're alive over there.
HR screenings before finally meeting the hiring manager, assuming that the company is actually hiring for the role, resulting in a process that takes an average of 27.5 days per role, with only about a third of US companies actually monitoring whether their hiring practices led to good employees, where this chaotic nature of the system is exemplified by one particularly ironic example. When Sebastian Ramirez spotted a job posting that required 4+ years of fast API, however, Ramirez couldn't apply for this role since he only had 1.5 years of experience, because he was the actual creator of fast API. And this kind of misalignment between job postings and reality not only alienates
That's
qualified
so
candidates,
bad.
but also illustrates how far the hiring process has veered from its original purpose, leaving thousands of unemployed or underemployed workers to become completely discouraged with the labor market, if not potentially leaving the workforce altogether, just because of the difficulties.
Where are they going? What do you mean leaving the workforce? Where are all you going if you left the workforce? You still got to work, you still got to eat, still got to pay the bills. Take me with you. Like, no, I have so many bills.
In applying for a job. And we haven't even mentioned ghost jobs. According to a workforce analytics firm, Revelio Labs, an online job listing in 2024 is only half as likely to result in a hire as it was in 2020, signaling the explosive growth of ghost jobs as a corporate strategy. Where in a survey conducted by Clarify Capital, 50% of hiring managers admitted to creating ghost jobs to maintain.
Hey, he's used this before. He's recycling content, everybody. You saw it here. You saw it here first. He's used this before.
A talent pool for future needs, while 70% reported keeping job postings open for over 6 months. This illusion is further perpetuated by AI-generated recruiters on LinkedIn, which engage candidates with fabricated resumes and work histories under false pretenses.
Fabricated resumes? Pfft. We're not fabricating anything. Nothing to see here. Definitely not us fluffing nothing. Definitely don't do that. Don't fluff your resume and get that interview and then get that job and then pay your bills. Don't you do that. Nobody do that. Everybody disliking the video that said to do that? Yeah.
Where a study by the Stanford Internet Observatory uncovered 1,000 fake profiles tied to more than 70 companies, inundating job seekers with misleading outreach. Resume Genius estimates that LinkedIn alone may host as many as 1.7 million ghost job postings in the United States alone. Meanwhile, Standout CV reports that over a third of job postings in the UK remain active for more than 30 days without any hiring intent, highlighting the global scale of this issue. Where ghost jobs also serve another potential avenue to rake profits, as American journalist Bob Sullivan highlights that Equifax, with the help of thousands of HR departments across the country, has built one of the most powerful private databases of Americans' personal information. Weekly contributions from 75% of Fortune 500 companies and 85% of federal agencies include data such as social security numbers, birth dates, salary histories, and healthcare coverage, while simultaneously recruiting costs remain entirely tax deductible under federal.
At this point, nobody gives a crap about what's leaked. I'm pretty sure everybody's just going to give out their social security number on their, like, just outside cards. Just, hey, hire me. Here's my social. Here's all my information. Because everybody has it. The desperation is real. We don't care about our data because it's already been all stolen.
Acquisition regulation 31.205-34, as long as the listing meets the technical requirements of a legitimate job posting, which is almost impossible to prove against, which creates billions of dollars of incentives for companies to perpetuate ghost jobs, conduct superficial interviews, and fabricate listings indefinitely.
Exactly, Wombo Zombo. You just give it out because at this point it's like our name. And really, if you don't have credit monitoring in place, you should. That's my biggest. If you take anything out of this video, is get free credit monitoring on any of the free sites. You don't need it. When your data gets leaked, this is the stupidest thing. Credit monitoring is free. It is readily available, and yet when you get those emails or letters, if you're old, that says your data has been leaked, but we're going to provide you with free credit monitoring for 1 year. It's like, that's the most ridiculous concept I've ever heard of in my life, because it's free, already available, so you're not doing me any favors. I don't know if everybody knew that. It's go to Experian, which is, leaked your stuff already, or any other major credit reporting bureaus, make an account. You can monitor. You can set up alerts even that tell you, your credit score has been pulled. And you'll get an alert on your phone and an email. Easy.
creating a cycle that not only alienates job seekers, but also leaves thousands of unemployed or underemployed
Damn,
individuals
what is this?
disillusioned with a system that feels rigged against
men
them.
don't want to work. Okay, we're getting to the meat of it now. This is what we want to see here. We want to see men giving up. That's right. Labor force participation rate used to be very, very much close to 100% participants. Now men over here, we're getting down to 65. 35% of men are just straight giving up. We're tired of it. Experian. Yeah, this is one of them. You can use any one of the major credit bureaus. They provide you access. Wait for any breach for free credit monitoring. You can just pile up codes. Yeah. Yes. Agreed. Also use credit freezes, except when you're actively applying for credit. Yeah, exactly. Freeze your credit. How many of you are applying for credit cards? Just hit the freeze credit button until you need to use it. That way, it's like cybersecurity, right? It always comes back to that. Secure yourself. Because if you're not securing yourself, then why are you spending all that time learning how to secure somebody else? There you go.
Individuals disillusioned with a system that feels rigged against them. Leading me to my final point. Similar to the workers leaving Ford as a result of the monotonous and soul-sucking work of the assembly line, today's workers face a similarly challenging reality. During Ford's era, wages of $5 per day provided workers with a transformative lifestyle upgrade, enabling them to afford homes and cars and financial stability.
Financial stability, yes. Nancy Adams, ask DeepSeek what the most influential cultural events of 1989 were. That seems like it's going to get me in trouble if I ask that. Okay. Challenge accepted. Let's see. What is the most influential cultural event of 1989? Oh, you suck. You suck, DeepSeek. Way to go. Actually, it was trying to type something there. We could rewind the VOD. It was trying to do something there. Try it again. Do it better this time. The year was marked by civic culture. Oh, okay. Well, you could rewind it and see.
Ability of the middle class that in many ways justified the toll of their labor. Unfortunately, today, the economic landscape has shifted dramatically, where between 1979 and 2024, productivity has surged by over 80%, yet wages increased by only 29.4%, leaving inflation-adjusted wages growing at a mere 0.2% annually, a substantial contrast from the 1950s, where a minimum wage worker could cover a month's rent with less than a week and a half of full-time work. And by 1956, with the federal minimum wage reaching $1 per hour, equivalent to $11.77 today, it provided enough income to support a 2-person household above the poverty line.
Fun fact. This is not to bash my parents in any way, but do you guys want to know a fun fact about where I had the value of $1 instilled in me? During high school, my dad worked at as a janitor. Both of my parents straight out of the Ukraine. My dad did not ever look for money. He looked for any job that would pay the bills and not much more. And I worked, what was it, my junior and my senior year with my dad as a janitor, and my mom would pay me $2 per session a night, and it took us about 3 hours every night to clean because my dad would sometimes have to take a nap during the middle of our janitor session. And so I was making $10 a week. This isn't complaining, but it did make me respect the value of $1 because $10 a week, I was pretty excited as a kid fresh out of the mindset of a Ukrainian boy. And yeah, we've come a long way. $1 is now $11 in minimum wage.
Today, nearly 1 in 10 U.S. homes were valued at $1 million or more than double the share in 2019, where meanwhile the median home price has reached $420,000, where even the cost of college, which traditionally offered career advancement, climbed from $394 in 1970 to $10,560 in 2020.
Geez, public institutions up, private institutions way the F up, and full-time and annual salary at minimum wage job. Okay, well, public and full-time are going up about the same. Private institutions, shame on you.
Where every single year, we all realize that our purchasing power is ultimately less than the year prior, where since the 1970s, the dollar has lost about 95% of its value, making the bare necessities feel
Right. The value went down, but, globally, internally, it's not that bad, is it? Federal Reserve creates a central bank. What's over here? Oh, the debt. That's fine. Hershey's bars, 30 Hershey's chocolate bars was $26. Why does that seem... Oh, what $1 buys? I'm confused. What $1 buys? 30? Okay, that makes a lot more sense. This chart makes very little sense, though, with this price point here.
feel completely out of reach for many. And as we begin to conclude, for me to give a topic like this justice, I believe that we have to look at the question, why does nobody want to work anymore? Different than the way that we continuously hear about it and the way that we think about it in ourselves. No matter what, we've all found those times where we're driving on a late Tuesday and traffic is extra heavy, or you're on a walk and you see a bunch of people also walking and you think, does nobody work anymore? What I'm attempting to do with this channel is to show the ideological reasons we think of work being work, or the
plot twist, this is actually me and none of you know it.
Reasons that we have led to this point with these systemic issues, with all of these many different components. With this one in particular, the way that I'm trying to get us to this destination is to look at the reason of what it is that, the reason why we're doing things. So
yes, everybody. Why are we doing the things that we're doing? Why are we all trying to get into cybersecurity? Why are we all in cybersecurity? Because of money. That's why. Because as that meme says, I like having a house over my head and food in my belly. But yes, if you just wanted to have an existential crisis about why you do anything, now's your time.
You buy a car because it's supposed to get you from A to B. So say the Model T, that was incredible. It got you from A to B. But now with all of the many different cars we have, what value is it really providing past the satiated need of just getting me from A to B? The reason that I say that is this whole entire script made me think about that story of the fisherman that all he loves to do is he loves to fish. And he brings his fish home, he feeds his little village.
Yeah, I haven't got to fish because my head was spinning in circles this past summer, but fishing, 10 out of 10 recommend. Unless you're against abusing fish, but we don't eat them. I don't know if that's worse.
Village or his little community, and that's what he does day in and day out. An American businessman goes over to him and he says, wow, it's great what it is that you're doing. You know how much money you could make doing this? And then he breaks down how if you do this and you sell an extra fish, then you're going to be able to hire an extra person. And with 2 people, you can do even more fish. And you scale the business. And then he says, and then you can retire. What are you going to do when you retire? And he says, I'm going to fish.
This goes full circle, and then he's gonna retire and he's just gonna do it again. Wow, that was perfect. I lost my train of thought. Oh, there's so many people that do that it's like, oh, just do this, it's so easy, you'll retire in no time. We can't all follow that advice. Hire somebody. Someone has to be hired. There's always going to be this hierarchy. So somebody's going to be on the bottom of this hiring. I don't want to use hierarchy, but yeah, someone's at the top, someone's at the bottom, and you're just going to hopefully make it to the mid-level, retire at a somewhat of a comfortable age, and apparently you're going to fish.
And I think I butchered the heck out of that story. But the point of the matter is,
no, you did a good job.
When you realize that
better than I could do.
For the majority of human history, the way that we are biologically wired is not the way that we work now. And that isn't me just trying to say, oh, everybody should work from home or whatever that people are going to try to project. What I'm trying to say is that
we can't all work
the
from home.
system that we are working at isn't working.
Public service announcement. Somebody has to be in the office. We can't all be working from home, right? Or can we? Think about it.
And it didn't work 100 years ago. The only reason the workers came back to the Ford factory was because the wage doubled. Now, I guarantee you, for any employers watching, double the wage, you're going to have more than enough good workers there. Now, I would argue that as a nation, we need to be increasing wages. It's unbelievable how...
You can't increase wages if people are so desperate for the job that they're going to take that pay anyways. We can't. They're not going to. We're not all going to collectively strike and not apply to jobs to the point where, oh, they can't find employees. No, it's man, it's interesting time right now. We can't. Companies aren't going to increase wages. I don't see why. Anyways,
stagnated it is, and we continuously keep chopping the feet of our businesses, of our infrastructures, to try to get some level of
supply and demand,
efficiency, or some level of cutting the bottom line to be able to make sure that the stock price is good and whatnot. When in reality, we're forgetting what Henry Ford said. I want to be able to give time to the worker so he can be more efficient, and give him money so he can buy my product. We are squeezing this lemon out so tight that soon we're not going to be able to have the ability to consume the products that we're working for. Now, when I talk like that, largely I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the person that has judgments already on this topic. But I feel like what the issue is now is that at some point, there was a time in history where you were working maybe for your lord or for whatever, but you were working in the little area that you had granted to you. Work was designated around meal times, with almost always, historically proven, a nap was calculated in there. That is for a fact.
I feel like he's going off the rails slightly to the point where it's not making sense anymore. Working for the Lord. Please, Lordy, pay me some more, pay me double. I'll come into the office. I'll happily come into the office. You just pay me double. That's all I ask, is just give me twice what you're paying me now. What?
Then at some point, we hit this unique stream of economic prosperity here in the United States. And while work was not necessarily fulfilling, you had the national sense of unity through the Cold War and just coming out of World War II. But you also had wages that could basically buy you anything that you wanted, as long as you just literally worked hard and saved money and sacrificed. Then we come to the baby boomer generation, where that begins to deteriorate. The baby boomer generation worked more than the silent generation, and you can see that their priorities started to fixate on the material goods. It was less about the community aspect. Gen X was the first generation that worked less than their parents. And what you can see is that this is following in the same historical pattern time and time and time and time again, because it's not working. And I think really I'm just trying to give an extra talking point in this discussion of, why do people not want to work anymore? It's not people don't want to work anymore. It's that you don't want to work for a job that's paying you nothing. You don't want to go spend all of the time
Nobody wants to work for the job that's paying you nothing, but if that's the only job that you can get, then you just accept it. And you try to find a different one in the meantime. But people are looking for that low-paying job right now. And I was hoping there'd be more explanation. I'm just going to cut it right there because it didn't really explain no one wants to work anymore. I kind of explained the overall, like the history of where we came from, starting with Henry Ford. And yeah, sure, he had some good ideas about proper treatment of your employees, but that was back in the day when people were buying houses for, like I said in a video, a cow and 2 chickens. Here, you can have my livestock. Just give me the deed to this house, and they're done deal right there. So yeah, the economy has changed. I don't know how this explained exactly why nobody wants to work anymore. I think it's just like a societal shift where people don't want to work for nothing, obviously, but with the state of the job market right now, they kind of have to. What is the alternative? Not having money? So yeah, I don't know about that. I think people still want to work, so rest assured, we all still out here working. But more importantly, if everyone was hiring, why can't nobody get a job? Right? That's on the. Let's see what this is about.
Despite the millions of job openings that are apparently out there, it's harder than ever to get hired. The news is constantly telling us that companies are desperate for workers and that there's tons of jobs just waiting to be filled. Meanwhile, there's stories everywhere of people sending out tens or hundreds of applications without ever getting a single interview. It just doesn't make sense. So what really happened to turn finding work into a full-time job? Well, a few decades ago, even when there were job shortages, it was still much easier to get a good job. The advice the boomers give of putting on a tie and asking the manager for a job really worked. All it took was enough tries before you finally met someone who liked you. Today, you could try this thousands of times and you probably still wouldn't get a chance. One difference that's easy to notice is that the bar for entry has gotten significantly higher for most jobs. Before 2000, a good college degree was almost a guarantee of a good job. Companies would compete with each other to get the most recent graduates. They were forced to offer a wage that could support a family. If they didn't, they wouldn't get any employees. But now the tables have completely turned, and they're only really interested in the very top % of students. What used to amount to a free entry ticket has become the very minimum of what they expect. Despite over 70% of listed jobs requiring a bachelor's degree, only a bit over 30% of American adults actually have one. But you don't just
35% of the new jobs require a degree, while only 40% of potential applicants have one. Good. Degrees can suck it. Any advice from a trucking industry to cyber? The basics. I don't know how much you're starting out from, but start from the basics, work your way up. Apply like crazy. Hopefully get lucky. 1 to 2 years. Don't quit your day job. I guess is my biggest advice is don't quit. Just study on the side. Had to slow down on traffic grinding. Security Plus, wonder what Dave out? Yeah, you don't want to burn yourself out.
Need a good degree, of course. You also need real-world experience even for so-called entry-level positions. Companies are so picky now that they're asking people who have just left college to have years worth of experience, all for a salary they can barely survive on. The only way to get this is to work while studying full-time, which is rarely possible if you need to do an internship for the field you plan on entering. The past always looks better in hindsight, of course. There were still job shortages and people still got rejected, but the key difference between then and now is the massive rise in competition because of the internet. If you were a company in the 1980s looking to hire a few new employees, you didn't really have many options. Small companies could only recruit through in-person events, word of mouth, or physical leaflets posted to boards. It was a
There we go. We solved it, everybody. The reason we all can't find jobs is because of the internet. It's become too easy to apply to jobs. There you go. If you're wondering why it's so hard, why nobody wants to work, it's because they're just trying to find a job and they just can't.
Slow, long process with only a few applicants to choose from. Hiring managers had to treat each applicant like a real person, using their own judgment to figure out who would be the best fit. Large companies only had a few more tools at their disposal. With their size, they could get a foot in the door at colleges or high schools and hoover up applications that way. But even then, they were still much more limited. So just think about how much this process has changed in such a short time. If any company wants a new employee, all they need to do is put a listing out on one of the many websites for that explicit purpose, and it'll almost immediately be seen by thousands and thousands of people, along with a whole wave of different recruiters who will spread it even more. Without any barriers to applying like showing up in person, these jobs can get thousands of applicants. There's no reason not to try your luck, so why not send off 50 applications? As it's gotten harder and people need to send even more applications to get a chance, it's only gotten worse. If you're using your personal phone number to close business deals, you're not just mixing work and play, but you're sabotaging your chances of success. Recently, I've sure, but you and your team are probably using 18 different with multiple different apps. You lose track of everything. It's just an absolute nightmare, especially when other people notice this and don't take you as seriously because you're just working from your phone. Not only can this look amateur, but you and your team are probably using 18 different interactions across all channels. And you can do this even if you're currently running your business off of your personal phone and your CRM is a spreadsheet. You don't need any tech experience company, and you'll be able to focus on closing and scaling up your business. This is the year to level up your off of your plan. It's exactly the same thing that's happened to dating. Modern technology has globalized the potential pool of competition. Finding a job or a partner used to be so much more personal. It all hinged on the impression you gave to the person across from you. Now it's a total numbers game. How you fill out your application form or your
Exactly. Total numbers game. I've said that before. Holy boot camp Batman. 17K? What the? Let me read this for one brief moment. I'm starting a boot camp at university. That sounds great. Sad part, it's like 17K boot camp. And what is UNLV? I'm still thinking if I should finish that. I think university degree plus security plus help. A boot camp in university? I don't know about that. Boot camps are more often than not a good choice.
Tinder profile has much more of an impact than pretty much anything else. And as a result, the standards have also gone up by ludicrous amounts on both job sites and dating sites. It makes people and companies think they have far higher standards because they have so much more choice. The reality on the ground though hasn't really changed, and the effects this has had on the job market have been catastrophic. It's led to the whole process getting much more dehumanizing for applicants, who have been turned into numbers on a spreadsheet. So those are the biggest reasons why finding a job used to be much easier than it is today. But the real devil is in the details. Even with all of these changes, finding work really shouldn't take hours of searching and hundreds of applications. The reason it's all so frustrating are the things that companies have done to deal with this new reality. So let's explore the different ways they found to make getting hired even harder. Today, the problem for companies has been completely reversed. Instead of not getting good enough applications to choose from, they get hundreds or thousands more than they need. Every time they need to hire someone new, it means reading through hundreds of applications and filtering out all the ones that aren't suited. In a perfect world, companies would put more time and effort into this, but we all know that hasn't really happened. Instead, they've turned to one of the most frustrating and dehumanizing parts of the modern job market: automatic rejection systems. Today, over 97% of Fortune 500 companies use what's referred to as an ATS, an applicant tracking system. The basic idea is simple. An ATS works like a sieve, filtering out any applications that don't meet whatever requirements the employer has set. When they first came into widespread use in the early 2000s with the rise of the internet, they could only deal with a few basic questions. If someone ticks the box saying they're not legally allowed to work, for example, they'd get rejected. Today, ATS companies advertise their services.
Why would you apply if you're not legally allowed to work? Why is that even a question? What? Am I just so detached from reality? Why do you need to ask if you're, I know if you're not like a legal resident maybe, but it seems a little silly. Are you legally allowed to work? No. I'm just trying to imagine this. No, you're just the guy we've been looking for because we want to pay you under the table, but we don't have to pay taxes
to the public like this is still the only thing they do. Companies like Greenhouse, Lever, or Workday have to admit their products automatically reject people. It's far too obvious for them to deny it, but they try to give the impression that it's only a few legal questions that do this. Of course, this isn't the case at all. Rejection questions, where giving the wrong answer puts your CV in the reject pile, are everywhere today. In fact, they're only the first hurdle an applicant needs to get past to beat the machine. As the internet becomes the main place to search for jobs, ATS companies had to adapt. They needed to keep up with the increasing amounts of applications, so they added more rejection questions. Instead of just filtering out the people you legally can't hire, where they started giving companies the option to reject people based on whatever legal criteria they wanted. Your address, your experience, any question they ask can make the difference between getting an interview or getting ghosted. Normally, they don't outright reject CVs, of course, they just rank them all based on the criteria they're using. Technically, all an ATS really does is turn tons of applications into a ranked list of candidates. If you end up on the bottom of the pile though, or anywhere near except the very top, you'll never get looked at anyway. An ATS probably won't automatically reject you, it will just put you so far back in the queue that you might as well not even be there. But even this approach still left too many applications for companies to look through.
Even their best effort to reduce the total applications, like this is what you're going up against. It's still not enough. There's still too many. But I did want to, what was this? I want to show this real quick because I thought this was really interesting. Speaking of taxes, for all of you illegal folks who are getting paid under the table, those people who are getting paid over the table, I think that's how that works. Check this out. How rich people pay no taxes. I saw this and I thought it was interesting in case nobody knew this. Normal. This is us normal folks who don't think about stuff. We just go to our job, pay our taxes. We're good boys. We don't do much thinking. We just accept it as it is. We get taxed, income tax 40%. That's freaking ridiculous. I don't get taxed that much. Maybe that's New York or California. Less tax, $1 million worth of company stock. We sell the stocks, 25% capital gains tax, because capital gains is stupid, and you keep more money. So they pay you in stocks, is basically what this is saying. No tax. This is how you can beat the system. $1 million of company stock, uses the stocks as collateral to borrow money from the bank. He spends the borrowed money like it's his income. Borrowed money is not taxed, but legally debt is not treated as real income. On paper, he has no income. His stocks continue to appreciate. He only pays capital gains tax if and when he sells his assets. And so you can just do this till the end of time, doesn't pay taxes, and there you go. You just win at life. Easy. That's that's the US when you're playing it on easy mode.
To fix it, they made the ATS able to read the CV itself. Today, these systems can go through applications and pick out certain keywords they want to see. If you didn't use those certain words they wanted, you'll end up at the back of the queue and eventually get rejected. They can also read how much experience you have in certain areas, making note of everyone who doesn't make the cut. Even today, these systems are far from perfect. If you don't have the same keywords they use in the job posting, then your CV can often end up on the bottom of the pile regardless of whether you're qualified or not. Similar problems can come from how you format your CV. Some templates don't get read as well by the system, meaning they miss out important parts and unfairly reject people. There are ways to avoid this, like making sure you use the same words they use in the advert, or using a standard template that the system will be designed to read. At the end of the day though, it's not something that people should have to do. Rewrite fairly reject people that the system will be designed.
I think if I was a recruiter and I saw this resume, their CV, unless he's just highlighting this to, oh, this is probably ATS scanners. That's what this is probably. But if you had an entire rainbow on your resume, I don't know if that would do you any favors.
To read. At the end of the day though, it's not something that people should have to do. Rewriting your entire CV every time is part of what makes finding a job in the modern world so soul-crushing, especially when you just get ghosted over and over again. Pretty much every single company in the West uses these systems now, but even with almost 100% adoption, the situation could still get worse. AI is perfectly suited for use in an ATS. It's already widespread, and it makes these programs far better at understanding people's CVs and filtering people out. So companies will be eager to cut out just a little bit more of the human element from finding new employees, as they might just save a little bit extra on personnel costs. This is the crux of the problem with ATS and how they've taken over the entire process. Finding a job used to be a human experience, where you were in at least limited control of the situation. Obviously you couldn't make it a certainty that you get hired, but you at least got a chance to make a unique impression on whoever did decide. By turning all of the applicants into a set of data, companies dehumanize the entire thing. So out of the thousands of applicants there usually are for each good job, you have have to stand out in spite of a system intentionally turning you into a data point on a spreadsheet. But even this incredibly infuriating roll of the dice is still the best outcome you can have when applying to one of these jobs. People talk about the 1,000-to-1 odds of getting a job once it's posted, and they might think they're over-exaggerating. In reality though, the odds are even worse. A large part of the rejections people get are because the jobs they're applying to don't actually exist. It's a problem that's only been getting worse. The ratio of people getting hired to job openings in the US actually fell below 0.5 in 2023, which means at least half of all job openings are for so-called ghost jobs, which are never going to get anyone hired in the first place. So let's explore the insidious reason companies keep these listings up and why so many people's time is wasted by them. Ghost jobs are everywhere on sites like Indeed. You can apply to a job listing and wait anxiously for a response, but after weeks or months you either get rejected or you don't hear back at all. In a lot of these cases, it probably has nothing to do with you or your CV. Instead, it was all probably because the company wasn't planning on hiring anyone anyway. In a survey of over 1,000 hiring managers, over 2/3 admitted to leaving their job postings up for a month. 10% had left listings on the internet for over 6 months without filling the role. There's a ton of different reasons that companies do this today, none of which are a good excuse for the time they waste. Sometimes people already know who's actually going to get the job. Some executives, some might need something to
I think it would be a huge benefit for the entire job market on LinkedIn, Indeed, and ZipRecruiter if we instilled a mandated 30-day expiration date on job listings. Because then if they expired and people got pissed, too bad. Resubmit it. And then at least they would have to be held accountable for keeping something up for as long as they do. Easy fix. Right there.
do. Or maybe they've already decided on an internal candidate. Maybe they're just going to dump the workload on one of their current employees but need to make it look like they tried to find someone else. It barely takes them any time or resources at all to drop some templated job listing online, and the longer they leave it up, the higher the chance that they'll hook that magical unicorn employee that they've been looking for. The person is qualified and experienced but will probably work for under market rate and won't ask for any benefits. Other times these listings will just be there for appearances. It looks good for the company if they're growing and hiring new people, for example. They might also think that the current employees will wonder who's getting replaced and work harder to avoid it. There's a million sleazy reasons for companies to create fake listings. The job sites will be happy to take their business. And that's another reason it's such a massive problem today. The job boards actively want dead listings. Fake listings boost their numbers and let them brag about the thousands of jobs they have available, given this illusion of plenty even when there's only scraps on the table. These websites aren't there to cater to job seekers. They only need to do the bare minimum to stay functional. If you're not paying for it, then you're the product, not the customer. Job seekers on these sites don't have any agency. For most, it's a choice between using them or going hungry. The real customers are the companies who post the adverts and pay for the extras. If they want to post dead listings, why would Indeed or any other job board stop them? All of these things have made finding a job that much harder. Today, it's an excruciating trial of patience unless you get unusually lucky.
Did you guys know that it costs money to have your job listing appear on a search, higher up in the search? Did you guys know that? I didn't know that. I don't know why I didn't think about that. I thought it just searched keywords and whoever's was the closest match. And it makes sense. You pay Indeed, you pay LinkedIn a premium. Someone searches cybersecurity analyst, yours pops up on the top because you paid them the most money. So they're fully incentivized to cater to employers, which sucks. But that's our life now.
Lucky early on in your search. Of course, if there is a problem, even one that's been entirely fabricated, an industry will spring up to solve it. Middlemen and recruitment agencies used to be necessary parts of the professional world. If you couldn't get your job seen by the right people, they could bridge the gap and find good candidates for the opening. You would think that this instant communication and the ability to have your job opening seen by thousands of people in seconds would have damaged this industry. But instead, the recruitment industry has grown massively in the past few decades. In the UK, the recruitment industry grew to be worth over 140 billion at the end of 2022, 20 billion more than just 3 years before that. 30,000 recruitment companies now employ over 200,000 people. For a considerable sum, they'll eventually find you a job, if they don't just string you along for more payments. Even in the best of cases, all these agencies do is reverse the changes of the past 20 years and give you a real shot at a job opening. Most of the time though, they're only really solving a problem that the wider industry created for people in the first place. It's a whole lot of money which only keeps flowing in because of how hard it is for regular people to do it themselves now. So maybe you got lucky with automated systems, or perhaps you went through the hassle of dealing with recruiters. But either way, you've somehow got yourself an interview. Except even that crucial stage of the process has been changed beyond recognition. While there may be a short, often meaningless interview towards the end of the process, tons of companies have substituted that for questionnaires and tests instead. While the questions might vary, most of these kinds of tests are pretty similar. Some of them might ask you about what you would do in an imaginary situation, supposedly to test your critical thinking. Others ask the kinds of questions where you can either...
Can you guys already envision AI interviews? Right? They're gonna create AI. You're gonna be talking to a robot face, and it's gonna be asking you these scenario questions just so you don't feel alone. Just so there's a little back and forth. And they're gonna ask you these questions, and there's this blank, cold face is gonna stare at you while you answer the question. And then that video is gonna get sent over, and it's gonna be reviewed by AI for your answer. And then they're going to pull out all the answered questions from the candidates that did it the best. AI is just going to do all, it's going to solve all our problems. Blockchain won't save us, AI will.
Lie and give the obviously correct answer, or be honest and get marked down. All of them though are a complete waste of time. It hasn't stopped anyone from Microsoft to Walmart, all of these companies using them to sort through potential employees. In fact, big retail chains are some of the most infamous companies for just giving people these tests instead of ever actually interviewing them. Why they need to know your star sign to see if you can stack shelves fast enough is another matter entirely, but the reason Walmart is the most enthusiastic about these tests above all other companies will become clear soon enough. These tests don't come close to giving employers information on the skills and experience that candidates might have either. Most people rationally just try to figure out what answers they want you to pick. The integral question of whether you'd be a good fit, on which the entire process should depend on, has almost been completely forgotten. Today, even references are nearly always just a confirmation that you worked at a company for a certain amount of time. Any information on whether you are actually a good employee can't be given anymore because you can sue people who give you bad references. It means that companies just don't make themselves liable. So if they don't are actually a good employee, can't be given anymore because you can sue people.
Can you sue someone for giving you a bad reference? If your employer provides an inaccurate or negligent job reference, you can sue them to recover damages. Yeah, but nobody's gonna sue their employer for inaccurate. Like nobody has time for you. Is this like, I imagine you just got canned, but you use them as a reference, or maybe you just don't like your work and you want to move on, but you need a reference. I wouldn't personally use a job, an employer as a reference if I didn't know without a shadow of a doubt that they were going to give me an actual accurate review. But nobody's going to go through these lengths to sue. Suing's expensive and time consuming. There's a little fuzzy thing in my face.
Who give you bad references. It means that companies just don't make themselves liable. So if they don't actually measure your aptitude, what's the point of all these aptitude tests? A lot of the time, the actual content of the questions doesn't matter. The main thing they're testing people on is how eager they are to jump through the hoops in the first place. If you can see through the corporate language and spend the time figuring out what they want you to say, you're already conforming. It's also why there are often multiple different tests at different stages in the hiring process. The more of their hoops you'll jump through, the more likely you are to be a good corporate drone. Walmart's tests have the same purpose as the humiliating dances they make their employees do. They break people down just a little bit more. Another reason for these tests has nothing to do with the candidates at all. Instead, they're in place because the upper management has no faith in the people further down the pyramid to choose good employees. Once companies start hiring by questionnaire, they can take middle management out of the loop entirely. It means they can put even more of their faith and trust into data and spreadsheets over real human judgment. With all of the changes we've seen in hiring in the past 2 decades, a common theme has emerged. All of these changes take the power out of the hands of the applicant and put them into the hands of corporate management. it. The process of getting your applications noticed is an exhausting numbers game. Either getting lucky or sending off dozens or hundreds of applications is the only way people can actually survive.
I looked at the data. If you just applied to a job through a job board, the odds of you getting hired were about 3%. So you got to apply to a lot of different jobs in order to have a chance to get them, and you're going to get lots and lots of just no responses.
Even if you do get through the first stage, employers will happily waste months of your time. They'll put you through endless different stages of interviews, tests, and trial periods, all to just ghost you after they choose somebody else. It's a truly dystopian part of our modern society that all of these barriers have been put in the way of people simply surviving. And the reward at the end of this arduous journey is just usually a job that pays the same wage as it did 20 years ago, before all of this even happened. In today's economic climate, it's a question of survival. Every paycheck can make or break someone's entire life. These artificial delays have done serious damage to society and eroded what little trust there was between employers and employees. So you can play nice to try and dupe the system, but never really buy into any of the rhetoric about family or trust. Don't fool yourself into thinking these companies actually care about you, or an equal system, or any other garbage. It's a myth that everybody's hiring, as it's been shown repeatedly that there's much more to this equation that first meets the eye.
What a wonderful video to watch on this bright Tuesday of some of this. All right, this makes me feel a lot better. I wouldn't be down about it. It just is what it is. Take it at face value. Don't think too much into it, Mel. It's a numbers game. That's all it is. You just apply to more applications. You're not gonna. It's not gonna do you any good to be depressed about it, because you're just gonna sit there, be a little bit down about it, and then what? We cooked? No, we're not cooked. It's not cooked at all. It's just it is what it is. Of course, that's what happened. I explained it all in the video. Technology, the internet. This is caused by the internet. The availability of technology to streamline application processes. One of the points that they made, though. How corporate is taking their hands, they're putting their hands onto or taking control over the hiring process, because lower management, they don't expect to do a good job at finding the right candidate. I mean, at a certain point, you can't automate everything. You have to talk to somebody, because that you're going to be able to tell in a conversation if somebody's lying, for one, how competent they are, and then the soft skills. Soft skills are the most important part. Most of the time, you can talk the talk. I was gonna say, WoW is better than that. WoW's better than everything, man. WoW was the good old days. Now it's kind of shit, but that's not where. That's a tangent for another story. Is it really true, or a manifestation of focusing on being no jobs? It's not true at all. No. It's just highlighting the problems. It's not impossible. It's just different now to get a job. You gotta start slanging Okay. Yeah, all right. Watching for the Philippines. Hope the weather's nice in the Philippines. I think the scheme has very villain con or eradicator. Well, thank you. Y'all coded yourselves out of a job. Yes, but now they just get a different job. I was doing a good invest because they had helped me to find a job, LinkedIn, and all that to get into CS. Yeah. All the old people who told young workers we could be replaced by robots now refuse to work with robots and get mad. Then demand people. Yeah. I don't know if we necessarily want to be staring at this guy. Let's stare into the soul of DeepSeek. Learn to pivot to where... Oh, yeah. Man, I swear I have some attention deficit disorder. I have parts of it. I'd say that all that really does for me, it doesn't depress me. It just makes it seem like the importance of having backups. My network teacher would be so proud of me. Having backups in your life, not just in your job to restore shit. is more and more important. Having savings, even if that means, I know it's really funny to say, but if you're in a position to save, don't just spend it all on a bunch of crap because you make more money now. Save up a little bit and then have that backup. It's peace of mind. But I'm sure all of you are just trying to get that first job to begin with. But yeah, you just got to have side gigs once you do land that job. How many irons in the fire? So many irons. Just finished Google Cyber Cert and trying to get a help desk job at my current company. What should I focus on next? Some additional certificates towards the position you're looking to get. A help desk job is fine. It's a good start. It's an IT job. And then from there, you just pivot it into whatever position you're looking for. Stride, bite. I swear I won't get hired by blind applying anymore. My last 2 jobs were because of people I knew. Administrator. The only jobs I've ever gotten were from blind applying. So there's 2 schools of thoughts. There's the school of thought that says, oh, you need to network your way into a job. And then there's people like me who refuse to accept that and don't want to talk to nobody, and we just play the ATS game. It can be done. I made a bot to apply on LinkedIn only. Works on easy applies, but I still get it, or let it run. Check that email every once in a while, see if I'm getting something better while currently employed. See, Rolando, I have a constant fears. I have a fear here, a fear there. I'm paranoid about everything. I guess I'm in the right position. I'm in the right career as a paranoid person, right? I feel like somehow my current employer is going to find out that I'm applying to jobs, and I'm going to lose my job because of it. That's the debilitating anxiety type shit that I have to deal with. It's fine, though. It's my pain. It's my struggle. I have to live with that every day. I took my first job making only $25K a year to get past the experience catch-22. I said I would pay my dues and work for dirt cheap to get that juicy experience. I guess I inadvertently did the same, William. I started as a security analyst and at a Fortune 500 company, and I had surprisingly two interviews lined up. It was one for this pure security analyst job. The other one was for a basically system administrator job at a local government, a city government position. I'd have to commute. It was like an hour commute, but it paid almost double what the security analyst position paid for. And I talked to my wife about it. I was kind of stressing out about it. This was right around the time where my business had failed. I was in crippling debt from the business. We're talking thousands upon thousands of dollars. We're $15,000, $20,000 in business debt. I still owe some business debt. I haven't been touching that. They're probably going to come after me at some point. I don't know. They're probably listening right now. But I had debt. And I was like, okay, so I get this job over here with a ton of experience, Fortune 500 company, or a job that pays more and I can catch up on my bills. That's going to go nowhere, and it's not going to be anything that I like doing, and I have to commute. There's a lot of cons to that one, but the money was outweighing the cons a little bit. And then we've ultimately decided, no, the experience is going to be best. And that experience for the low-paying job, which was, what, 50,000, 60,000? It's not 25,000, but still, for a security analyst, it was pretty low. That allowed me to use that experience and leverage that in interviews and explain all my experience and get the senior position that I'm in now. So it's not exactly paying my dues, but I got paid less, did as much work as I could there, learned all I could, and moved on in a year. It was a year and a half, but I was trying to get out of there at a year. Build a bot that applies for a job, plausible deniability. That's fair. I could. That wasn't me, it was the bot. It was a bot applying. ATS are useless for HR as well. I mean, everybody's using them. Apparently, most find them useful. I need to take my oldest son to his basketball practice. What kind of business did you have? I did e-commerce. I made products at home. This was the peak of COVID. Everybody was online. Everybody was Netflix and chilling by themselves because their significant other. Well, I probably came over too. But yeah, anyways, I did e-commerce. I shot up with Facebook advertising. Sales were just going nuts. I was spending a lot of time making shit, and it came crashing down once COVID kind of leveled off. Thoughts on DeepSeek? Ivan. It's just another ChatGPT. It's the metrics that it has are impressive, right? These no, Texas. Oh, yeah, this shirt's kind of useful. Can't fault them for the metrics, that's for sure. Where's working retail? It did build my soft skills to the point where I could talk to anyone. Same. I was an awkward person. I couldn't talk to nobody. Like asking somebody before I did retail for 3 years. After this, I'll probably go. Get ready. He's got practice in 20 minutes. I did retail for 3 years. I did cashier into customer service. But before that, asking people, like just in conversation that I didn't know, hey, how's it going? Hey, how are you doing? Those words just felt like the most foreign thing to come out of my mouth. I just like could not for the life of me. It felt like I was speaking another language when I would have to ask people how they're doing. Saying hi is fine, but then like having a conversation, I was awkward. It didn't help that I didn't talk to much people in high school. I know it's hard to imagine me not talking when I'm just talking to myself into a camera for a lot of these videos. But yeah, 'twas me. Not trying to troll, but should we talk about projects and getting experience versus complaining about job market trends we can't control? Yeah. That's what the videos are for, JRunner7. This is us to all collectively get together, pat ourselves on the back, pick ourselves up by our britches, and say, hey, the job market sucks, but we're going to do all these projects that he's been talking nonsense about, put them on a resume, and keep applying. Like all the other videos that I post say to do. Working in an engineering company for almost 15 years, I decided to quit and pursue a degree in AI and machine learning, cybersecurity, and AI rapidly growing fields here in the Philippines. Ah, I said Philippines. Oh, I'm dyslexic. Philippines. Time to get off and grind? Yes. Never stop grinding. What do you suggest I do with a graduate criminal justice degree certified in financial crime and data analytics? KL, fun fact. Not my last, job before last, where I worked at an MSP. My coworker, wicked smart. He was an Israeli dude. He was very nice, very smart. He had a criminal justice degree. He went from tier 1 to tier 2 because he was, again, very smart, very good at his job, very good at troubleshooting. He was getting some Azure certificates, landed an Azure associate engineer job, and now he was like reaching out to me to see if I wanted to work for his company, and he leveled up like crazy. And he had, did I mention he had that degree, he had that degree. It sounds like that was completely irrelevant if I didn't point that out. He had a criminal justice degree. That he didn't stop him. Don't let that stop you. A degree's a degree to some point. Obviously, if you have a more relevant degree, it's better when you're talking to your person interviewing you, but you still put in the work. You still can prove that you can show up and get stuff done. That's all that is. GRC, it exists. Mo, it looks like will learn cybersecurity as a hobby just to be safe. Probably won't do it in order to get hired. Appreciate all the insights. Hopefully they're helpful, Mo. GRC is great. Just another niche. Thomas, you can make a lot of money there. It's a different mindset to have. Do you think a WGIT degree looked down upon by employers? Not at all. I personally would get one if I had to redo it all because it's easier. Got invited for a stage 4 interview for a training program with Red Alpha, but DHCP. Any tips? Study up. Don't be lazy about it. Silver Zap. Try to find questions about that either on YouTube or I don't know, somebody listed somewhere to try to see what they might ask you. because the more prepared you are, the better. Data analysis for transportation industry. All the research to bring my boss, so you can say this is not right because he doesn't like the outcome. Literally threw myself into studying cybersecurity at the start of last year. Never stopped. Still getting major imposter syndrome because there's so many things to learn. Yep. That doesn't. Hi to Gia. You don't ever get over that. Got people asking me in live streams, hey, shouldn't you already know this? Or hey, why are you doing this? It's so simple. It's like, because there's just so much. Just because I've never touched this tool before doesn't mean that I didn't spend all this time learning all this other crap. There's just so much that you're going to constantly be learning. And if there's people who are talking down to you because you don't know something, those are not people that you want to be around. There's no room in my life for people to tell me, hey, you should know this, you're stupid, because there's lots of people in the world who aren't going to be talking to you like that, so you can't focus on people like that. That was a little bit of a tangent, but yeah, imposter syndrome, you're going to feel that. My last boss was really nice about it. I'm trying to get away from constantly looking for my boss's opinion on how well I'm doing, because if you're doing bad, they're going to let you know. And if they don't let you know, they might just can you on the spot, and then you'll really know that you were doing bad. But yeah. What do you think of going into red teaming after being in a SOC for 4 years? That's a natural pivot, Levi. Work from a SOC, blue teaming to red team. Lots of people do that. Now, hopefully in that time you spent in your SOC, you've been leveling up your red teaming knowledge. It's naturally that you would, because that's what you're defending against. But yeah, I'm gonna head off. Everybody, thanks for tuning in to this manic, albeit somewhat doom and gloom. I like watching videos like that, but I think I'm gonna curate them a little bit better if I do it again. So it's a little less doom and gloom. I don't want to demotivate anybody from getting into this field or IT in general, just because job market's screwed up. Job market's screwed up for everybody. It's not just IT. We're all struggling to find jobs everywhere because of how the internet has messed up the hiring process. But all right, hope you have a great, what's this? Tuesday. It's Tuesday, yeah. Great Tuesday night.